Hey everybody, Bobby D here, and thanks for checking back into the channel. So today I am kicking off a series which is a budget bike rebuild. And what we're using is a K4, which is a 2004 Suzuki GSXR750. So before I get into what we're doing about this bike, let's just talk about this model a little bit. So the K4 is the same as the K5. And what that is Suzuki owners tend to use this K thing instead of generation. Like, enough of that. So this is the K4, K5, 2004-05 GSXR750. So the neat thing about these Suzukis, and really this 04-05, is this was an era when these motorcycle manufacturers were really making massive updates and changes to the bikes. Like every 2 years there were lots of changes. It was really a heyday, a good era to be into motorcycling. So this bike, this is the first year of this generation, which, you know, they slimmed the bike down, had a little different headlight and things like that, but this is still a model that really lacks a lot of technology, which is a love or hate thing. A lot of people really like not having all these crazy wild electronics and modes and traction controls and IMUs and things like that. They like to just enjoy the spirit of riding, the feel of a cable on the throttle. So this is a bike that is still real genuine in that capacity. And it also makes this bike really popular for track use, for guys taking these on track days. Because one, you know, they're affordable, and two, the GSXR750 is really manageable power. These are a really good platform for people to get out on the track. And, you know, street guys like these, they're just huge in the old squid stunner, you know, communities and stuff. But let's get back to this bike. So here we go. So we've got this 04 that, obviously, taking a look at it, it has seen its better days. This bike has been down. There's some cosmetic damage to all the plastic on this side, a little bit here on the cover. And, you know, you can clearly tell it's seen its better days as far as maintenance and service as well. These bikes, if you look around on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or any of your local used ads, you know, depending on the condition, this one's, you know, like I say, this one's kind of got a little bit going on here, but a clean example of one of these bikes, you know, they usually run probably in the $4,000 to $5,000 range. They've kind of bottomed where they're at, and the markets are a little quirky right now, let's just say that. But a bike in this condition, you know, you can probably find one of these for a couple $1,000s with some damage to them like this. So they're a great find for a budget build, and they're a really no BS platform to use for just a good cheap kick-ass street bike or a track bike. So with that said, what I'm going to be doing is starting this bike off by removing all this bodywork, looking to find out mechanically if there's, you know, issues and things going on, leaks, breaks, cracks, and things like that. And then we're going to start slapping this thing back together, and I'm going to document that whole process. We've got a pile of parts here, and like I say, this is going to be a budget affordable build. So we've got a box here of some aftermarket bodywork, which, you know, OEM for this thing, not going to happen. So we've got some aftermarket bodywork here, obviously a cable, headlight bracket, and a whole bunch of other mechanical parts that we're going to be, you know, slapping on this thing as we clean it up, grease bearings and everything else, and get this thing ready for summer. I am still in Michigan. It is still mid-February, even though if you can look out that window and see some sunshine, it's weirdly warm today, but we're going to get this guy going because it's still going to get cold. We'll have this thing ready by spring to get out back on the road and see how she does. So hit that like and subscribe button. You're going to see some neat content, some tips, some pointers with fitting bodywork if that's something that you're into, or just general service on a budget platform. So with that, let's get at it. All right, so starting this process off, what I would recommend doing is kind of getting organized. And what I mean by that is having your tools ready that you're going to start out with, a good set of Allen keys that hook onto a socket wrench, make life easier. You're going to be turning out quite a few screws when you start this, and something you can organize and put fasteners in. So the aftermarket bodywork kits are a little bit janky when it comes to fitment. They often don't have the screws, grommets, things like that. So having something like this that's organized, that you can save any fasteners that you have off of the smashed factory bodywork, is a great thing. So with that, let's start removing some bodywork here. We're going to start with, we've got some zip ties holding things together here. We're going to get these cut, and you know, these Allen wrench sets that hook onto a socket set really make life easier when you're going to be kicking off a lot of screws. You're going to be turning out a whole bunch here, and Suzuki definitely uses some unique fitting screws that have a collared head on them. I'll show you one of these in a second here. So if you were to go to buy a set of screws on eBay or something, they often don't have this collar. So these are a great thing to hold on to. So we're gonna hold on to these and we're gonna put them in here. So we'll pull off all the bodywork, and the tank is gonna get repainted to matte. So we got a couple more of these. We're starting from the front to the back, and we're using our organizational tool the same way. So it helps you kind of remember where your bolts go when you pull them out. And, you know, after you've done these a few times, you start to recognize where they go. You know, one of the pitfalls at dealerships are often those mechanics are rushed and they're pressed for time, and they're working on so many different models that they don't recognize these bolts like a lot of us do when we own our bike. So you may find fasteners in the wrong spot. Huge pet peeve of mine. So, you know, I'm real picky about that stuff. So let's get this going and get this side off here. Is anybody bored yet from watching me just pull out screws? This is not the most exciting part, but we're going to see something here in a bit as we start. Now these bikes also, they have push pins that hold them in. So this was the generation of bike and the era when we started seeing the 3M grid lock that Suzuki and Kawasaki started using, and these push pins into the frame like this. And you can see this rubber grommet's damaged here. So let's get this off. We know these parts are getting replaced, so we don't need to be extremely careful with removing this, but we don't want to mess up any electronics that may be hooked to the panels underneath here. So I'm cutting some tape right now, the overhead on here, and here we go. Also got a screwdriver handy for some of those plastic push pins, which I see one right down here. We're going to push this out and get that off. So I'm going to stop the camera real quick, because if you guys actually look, this thing is grimy. So we've got all kinds of chain lube. It's been working its way down here. This bike's had an oil leak coming from the oil pan right down here, and I believe upon close inspection that it was the lack of a crush washer on the oil drain bolt. But we've got lots of chain lube. Things are really messy up in here. So I'm gonna stop the camera for a minute. I'm gonna put some rubber gloves on my hands, and I'm gonna keep pulling this thing off. But this is your first process. You wanna get the side, get everything off. We're gonna remove this front end. This is all busted. We're just gonna take all that off. So that's really, you know, a straightforward kind of process right now. The actual fitment of the aftermarket bodywork gets a little bit more tricky, and there's some, you know, tips to getting that on. But just removing this stuff, especially if it's damaged, it's not really, you know, too, you know, I guess just say hard to do, okay? So with that said, I'm gonna stop this camera for right now and pause this thing, get some gloves on, and then keep on pulling this stuff off. Well, here we go. I have the side panels removed, and there wasn't a whole lot to this. Got the gloves on now. We had 3 screws along here, push pin here, a screw here, and this one you can see it's still in the frame, and a screw down there. Now, to get the side panels off, especially when they're damaged on these bikes, the side panels clam together down on the bottom. So I removed everything on this side, and here are our side panels. Now, you know, a lot of times you can look at your plastic and your stuff and kind of tell, you know, a little bit by examining this if there's something going on with the bike. Like this one, we've got a lot of oil down here, a little bit of melting here, which I'm not sure if that's from when this thing went down, if everything shifted and was hitting the headers. But seeing oil all over the place, looking for coolant or anything like that, kind of clues us in to take a look at the bike here. So, you know, I've got the, you know, panels off here. So let's take a peek at this thing. Let's look underneath here. So, got this ready to keep my stand and my workplace clean. But our oil drain bolt right here, we can see oil coming there, working its way back and just blasting everything up in here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to remove all the things that we know we're going to be replacing. This bike doesn't have a speedometer sensor that's working, and it hooks right here on your drive sprocket. We're going to remove this thing because we know it's getting taken off. But this thing needs to get a good degreasing. So the next step, what we're going to be doing here is getting, you know, really the rest of the bodywork off of this bike. bike. So what I mean by that is we're going to pull the tail off. I'm going to work on taking the front off the bike. And this is something I don't really want to bore you guys with, but when these are damaged, this is not going to be fancy or finesse. This is just getting ripped off. So with that said, next step is going to be tearing all this thing off and getting this thing down and getting it power washed. So if you like what you see and you want to see the new stuff getting put back on, check back in for more content. This whole series is going to be pretty cool with some learning involved, with some tips that might help you out if you come to fitting some of the aftermarket bodywork, because that stuff generally does not slap right on the bike. There's a little bit of tweaking you have to do. So with that said, we're going to get this bike off the lift after we get a few more of these plastic parts off, get it cleaned up, and get the next series or chapter of the series going for you. So budget bike rebuild, K4 GSXR750, great find. If you're looking, this is something you might want to watch. So check back in.